Damn, usually when I talk about Quebec, people don't like it. But now we can talk about a strike that we're having. By the way, Ballet is a teacher, has a job as a teacher, had a job as a teacher. And they make more money working at a cafe than working as a teacher full time. For example, here you have an article by the CBC. Striking teachers in Quebec consider switching jobs rather than continuing fight for change. About 2,000 striking teachers attend free online seminar about transferring education skills to new career. Of course, these jobs suck. As someone whose very partner works in that, or doesn't work there anymore because the conditions are absolutely terrible. I understand people not wanting to continue. Yeah, it's about 420,000. 420. Oh, there you go. More than 500,000 Quebec public sector workers are on strike. Here, what's to know. Most of the people on strike, that's an article that was 6 days old. Most people who are on strike, for people who are interested, are workers in education and workers in health. And that's like a big chunk of workers, and they're all unionized. It's one of the reasons why Quebec has one of the highest unionization rate in Canada. It's because so much of our employees or people who have jobs are either in the public, are in the public sector, and they're all unionized. We're at 40%. 40% of Quebec workers are unionized. More than 500,000 public sector workers on strike in Quebec this week, as multiple unions representing education, healthcare, and social services are calling for inflation-adjusted pay and better working conditions. The strikes, some of which started weeks ago, seem to have strong public support despite schools being shut down and hospitals experiencing delays in delivering care. We've talked about that. Extreme support. Meanwhile, the unions remain in negotiations with the Quebec government after rejecting the latest offer, which they say is very far from their demands. The way the Quebec government has we'll talk about that after it's actually kind of funny. In the latest episode of the Decibel, Frédéric Xavier Duhamel, a staff reporter based in Montreal, answered questions about the strike and whether there's an end in sight. We're not going to read this. Who is striking in Quebec? There are three groups, the largest being the Common Front. It's a group of 4 unions with about 420,000 workers. They include teachers and nurses and care attendants, but also people like plumbers and all sorts of professions and workers in public institutions. There's also the Fédération Interprofessionnelle de la Santé, FIQ, that represents about 80,000 nurses and other healthcare professionals who are striking this week until Thursday. And there is the Fédération Autonome de l'Enseignement, FAE, which is the teacher union of about 66,000 teachers, who have been on an open-ended strike since November 23rd. How big is the collective job action? How many people are on strike right now in Quebec? It's huge. It's more than 500,000 workers. And it's extremely disruptive because hundreds of schools are shut down. Healthcare procedures are being delayed, surgeries, blood draws, things like that. It's having a big impact. How long have the Quebec strikes been going on? It's been going on for a while. The FAE has been on open-ended strikes since November 23rd, but the two other groups, Common Front and FEQ, also held a few days of strikes in November. Their actions have been escalated since then, and all unions have been negotiating for months. For example, the FAE have been without contracts since April 1st. So there's been a long build-up to the job actions we're seeing right now. Let's start with the teachers. What are their concerns that have led them to striking? They're not being paid. Well, they are being paid, but not being paid much. Other unions are asking for pay raises, but they're also asking for better working conditions. For teachers, it means better class composition because many teachers have been complaining about having to deal with a lot of students with special needs, which can take a lot of time and resources. Another thing teachers are asking for is the flexibility to be able to work from home on professional development days as students are already at home. That's one thing that I've actually witnessed with Ballet. There's no students at school, or Ballet is doing off hours work, and they're asking a lot of work out of hours. They only pay you for the classes that you have, like for the time that you spend in class. They don't pay you for correction. They don't pay you for preparing classes. They don't pay you for taking care of students outside of work hours or outside of class hours. It's really bad, and very often it's like a day off. And they require teachers to work either on preparing on whatever, and Ballet still had to go to the school, even though the school is empty. That's one of the things. What about nursing staff? FIQ nurses and other healthcare professionals have been asking for large pay raises, as well as a replacement of weakened premiums with a higher salary, which would then contribute to their retirement pensions, along with more accommodating work schedules. They're making the argument that they need better working conditions to give better services, because staffing shortages have been exacerbating the problems with the delivery of services, and people are seeing that. Since the pandemic, in particular, wait times in emergency rooms are through the roof. They're all extremely busy at all times. In Quebec, wait time for surgery is through the roof. Many people don't have a family doctor, and it's very hard to access healthcare professionals. So public service workers are saying, if we want to resolve the problems we have with the delivery of services, then we need to better conditions to make this possible, and it really resonates with people in Quebec a lot. So they're asking, Quebec has offered 12.7% pay raise over 5 years, which is not even the predicted inflation rate. So all unions rejected it. Over 1 in 2 Quebecer is actually in support of the strike. It's actually 56%. 34% are against the strike. And keep in mind that this strike is not just any strike. It's affecting every parent that exists, or who have kids who go to school. It affects every potential patients that go in hospitals. It's actually insane. And the way the government has responded, and I'll talk about the way the government has responded. The government this year has every representative in the National Assembly have voted themselves a 30% pay raise this year, which is such an untactical move. We'll say untactical, because what they did is they give themselves a 30% raise, and then they're negotiating raises of every public sector worker, and they're going to tell them, we're just going to raise you 12%, which is less than half of the raise that they voted for themselves, because they vote their own raises. So can you imagine? And then they gave they proposed a raise for cops as well, which was, they said that they would bring up 21% on 5 years, and cops said no. Almost double of what they proposed to nurses and teachers. Why would they offer more to cops than to teachers? Don't ask me. The answer should be pretty evident. So yeah, a lot of people are pissed, and the Prime Minister has come out, and his support, at least in polls, is plummeting. It's going really, really bad. And he came out in the media and he said, I urge for Quebec teachers and Quebec nurses to stop striking. To Quebec teachers, I ask, think of the children that you are harming by striking. The children who cannot have their access to education because you are striking. Which is an appeal to emotion, which could be effective, but people are so angry at the Prime Minister that it didn't really work. People are like, okay, well, if you really want to think about the children, if you really care about the children, give proper conditions to the people who take care of them. Give them good conditions, give them money, give them a good wage. So it's like, yeah, the way you can think of the children is not by forcing teachers to go back to work, but by telling them, hey, we appreciate you. Here's a decent wage increase. Trudeau more like Smeldo. Lex, Trudeau has nothing to do with this because it's Quebec. Justin did that. It's Quebec. It's Quebec, baby. No, nothing about Canada has to do with this story, because we're Quebec libre indépendant. So yeah, it's an incredibly interesting. I don't know how it's going to fold out. It's a lot of fun. Really, did Quebec secede from the nation? No, not yet. Do I smell some souverainist spirit? Yeah. Quebec is not a country right now, but it will be, okay? Who's the PM of Quebec? PM of Quebec is François Legault. That's his name. Yeah, Halitosa says, I've gotten to the point that rhetoric about saving the women and children automatically makes me feel manipulated. Yeah, which is good. Good that people don't fall into that trap, into that emotional manipulation. Can't believe it worked. It used to work in the past. It still does, right? Oh, you want to make trans people valid? Think of the children.